All right, diving right in. Today, it's Susanna Hoffs.
Susanna Hoffs, yeah.
And look, I know you, our listeners, are probably already pretty familiar with her,
Oh,
at
yeah.
least with the Bangles.
Yeah.
But we've got a whole bunch of stuff here.
Yeah.
Interviews, articles, and even some listener notes.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to dig deep, get past just the surface level stuff.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to find really interesting is how much more there is to her story than just those 80s hits.
Absolutely.
So ready to discover a whole new side of Susanna Hoffs.
Let's go.
Okay, so starting at the beginning.
Okay.
She was born in L.A. in 1959.
That's right, 1959.
And her parents were, well, not exactly your typical Hollywood family, right?
Not at all. Her mother was a filmmaker.
Wow.
And her dad, get this, a psychoanalyst.
Really?
Can you imagine?
I mean, what were the dinner table conversations like in that house?
I know, right? I mean, it's got to be kind of a recipe for creativity.
Yeah, for sure.
It's no surprise she was drawn to creative things, you know?
Right, and it really seems like seeing the Beatles A Hard Day's Night was like a pivotal moment for her, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Definitely a spark, like a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
From what I've read, it sounds like that film just totally ignited her musical passion.
And she had some pretty diverse musical influences growing up, too, right?
Totally. Everything from, like, the Byrds to the Velvet Underground, even Joni Mitchell.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a pretty wide range.
And I think you can hear those influences in her music later on. Definitely.
Yeah, I can see that.
That kind of blending of genres.
Okay, so then she goes off to UC Berkeley, studies art.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about that, how that visual art background must have influenced her.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you think about the Bangles music videos, their album covers.
Right.
It's got to be connected.
But even with an art degree, she gets pulled back to L.A.
Back to LA, yeah.
And that's where things really start to take off musically for her.
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay, so she puts this ad in the paper, looking for musicians who are into, the article says, jangly guitars.
Jangle pop.
And harmony-driven melodies.
Yeah, that's the sound.
For those of us who aren't music experts, what does jangle pop even sound like?
Okay, so imagine that bright, upbeat guitar sound you hear in, like, 60s pop, but with a modern twist.
Okay.
Lots of guitars layered on top of each other, catchy melodies.
Yeah.
And those really distinctive vocal harmonies.
So the Bangles, they were like the embodiment of that sound.
You really were. And of course, this ad leads her to Vicki and Debbie Peterson.
Yes. The Peterson sisters.
And boom, the Bangs are born.
The Bangs, not the Bangles yet.
Not yet.
And breaking into the LA music scene in the early 80s.
Oh, man.
Especially as an all-female band.
Tough time.
Couldn't have been easy.
Not easy at all, the music industry back then.
Yeah.
Not very welcoming to women, let's just say.
So they're playing small clubs. They even put out their own EP in '82.
Yeah, it was a real grind.
Yeah, but it paid off eventually because in 1983, they signed with Columbia Records.
Big break.
And released their debut album, All Over the Place.
Which actually got some pretty good reviews.
It did. But maybe not the massive chart success they were hoping for.
True, but, it kind of laid the groundwork for everything that came after.
You think so?
Yeah, it really solidified that 60s-inspired sound.
Okay, so like catchy melodies.
Catchy melodies, yeah.
Bright harmony.
Bright harmonies, definitely.
A little bit of a folk rock influence.
That's it, yeah. And it got them notice, within the industry, people were paying attention.
Okay, so then comes 1986.
86, big year.
And different light, and suddenly everything changes.
Changes big time.
Manic Monday blows up.
Huge hit.
And the Bangles are everywhere.
Everywhere. But you know what always gets me about that song?
What's that?
It was written by Prince.
Prince?
Yeah.
Isn't it wild?
I mean, I know that, but it's still so crazy to think about.
I know, right?
So, Prince, he's a fan of the Bangles. Yeah, he was. And he just thought that Manic Monday would be perfect for them. I mean, some people say it was a strategic move on his part.
Like he saw their potential.
Exactly. Maybe he knew they could reach a bigger audience with his songs.
So Prince gives them this hit song, and boom.
Instant success.
But then Walk Like an Egyptian comes along, and it's just next level.
Global phenomenon.
I mean, did they know they had such a massive hit on their hands?
That's the thing about Walk Like an Egyptian. It wasn't your, typical pop song.
Yeah, it's definitely quirky.
Super quirky. The lyrics, the video.
Did you ever try to do that dance move?
Maybe.
I did. It did not go well.
It's a tough one.
But it's so catchy. And the video?
Oh, the video is iconic. That mix of, ancient Egypt and 80s dance moves,
Yeah. So unexpected.
I think that's why it worked. It was just fun and different.
And you couldn't not dance to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
just captured the energy of the 80s, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So at this point, the Bangles are like superstars.
Susanna's everywhere.
Yeah, magazines, MTV.
She becomes a real icon.
A whole icon.
And then it all leads up to their next album, Everything, in 1988.
Everything, yeah.
And there's like a shift, right?
Right.
It's not all just upbeat pop anymore.
It's a little more mature, a little deeper.
Yeah, you get songs like In Your Room, but then there's Eternal Flame, which she co-wrote.
Oh, Eternal Flame. Such a beautiful song.
It really shows a different side of her songwriting and of the band, I think.
Totally. It's a more vulnerable side.
Yeah, and it was another #1 hit.
Huge hit all over the world.
But it seems like, I don't know, maybe the pressure of all that success
Oh, yeah, it takes a toll.
starts to create some tension within the band.
It's tough, you know, being in a band, it's like a family, and sometimes families fight.
Yeah, especially under that kind of pressure.
For sure.
So in 1989, the Bangles announced they're breaking up.
It was a sad day for a lot of fans.
Yeah, but maybe it was inevitable with everything going on behind the scenes.
Sometimes you just need to step away, you know?
Yeah, so the Bangles call it quits, and Susanna embarks on her solo career.
A whole new chapter.
Yeah, but I think that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive.
Definitely a story for next time.
Yeah.
So it's 1989. The Bangles are, well, they're over.
Yeah, huge bummer for fans.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder, you know, what's next for Susanna?
Right. I mean, she had been the face of the band, that voice.
Oh, that voice.
So 1991, she releases her first solo album.
When you're a boy.
Yeah, When You're a Boy. Did it feel like a totally different direction musically, or was it still kind of Banglesy?
You know, it had its own thing going on.
Okay.
A little more, like, introspective, I'd say.
Yeah.
More rock-oriented, maybe, than some of the Bangles' poppier stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But you could still hear those harmonies, you
Oh,
know.
for sure. And those melodies.
Oh, yeah. She's got a knack for a catchy melody, that's for sure.
And My Side of the Bed was a big hit off that album.
Big hit. Still gets played on the radio.
I think I heard it the other day, actually.
It's a classic. And, you know, around this time, she also starts dabbling in acting.
Oh, yeah. She's in her mom's film, The All-Nighter.
That's right.
And wasn't she in one of the Austin Powers movies?
She was. She makes a cameo in The Spy Who Shagged Me.
It's like she just doesn't shy away from anything new, you know?
No, totally. She's always trying new things, always exploring.
That's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, it's like she's not content to just stay in one lane.
Yeah, keep pushing those creative boundaries.
Exactly. And I think that's, you know, that's important, especially when you've had the kind of success she had so young.
Yeah, it'd be easy to just, like, coast.
So easy to just ride that wave.
But she keeps, she keeps evolving.
She does. It's awesome.
So, okay, solo career's going, acting's happening, but the Bangles story isn't quite over yet, is it?
Not at all. There's a kind of reunion in the works.
Okay, tell me more.
So it's 1998, and they get together to play at a Harry Nilsson tribute concert. It wasn't some big planned thing, more like, you know...
Like an accident.
Yeah, it just kind of happened, and it sounds like the chemistry was still there.
Really? Like they still had that spark?
Yeah, I mean, reading the interviews and stuff, you can almost feel that energy.
Okay, so was that it? Did they go straight into recording new music?
Not right away.
Oh.
It was a few years later, in 2003, that they released Dull Revolution.
Dull Revolution, their first album in, what, like over a decade?
Yeah, something like that.
That must have been huge for their fans.
Oh, yeah. Everyone was excited.
So was it like a return to their old sound, or was it, more reflective of where they were at musically then?
It was a cool mix, actually.
Okay.
They still had that, classic Bangles sound.
Right.
Jangly guitars, the harmonies.
Uh-huh.
But the songwriting was definitely, like, more mature.
More grown up.
Yeah, more layered, I'd say.
Interesting.
There's a song on there, something that you said.
Okay.
It's got that, like, that classic Bangles energy, but lyrically it's deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. It shows how they've evolved,
Right. So the Bangles are back, new music's happening, but Susanna's solo career doesn't just go away, right?
Not at all. Actually, in 2012, she releases Someday.
Someday.
And this one's interesting. It's like a real tribute to the 60s music that inspired her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can tell she's like really connected to those roots.
Going back to her musical origins.
Exactly. So you've got the musician, you've got the actor, and then, get this, she becomes a novelist.
Wait, what?
Yeah. 2023, she releases This Bird Has Flown.
This bird has flown. Is that like a rock and roll tell-all or something?
It's actually a romantic
A
comedy.
romantic comedy.
It's so cool, though. It's like, it's totally different,
Yeah.
but it also makes sense.
How so?
Because, at the heart of it, she's a storyteller.
Yeah.
Whether it's through music, acting, or now writing, it's about telling stories.
That's true. So she's a musician, an actor, a writer. Is there anything this woman can't do?
I know, right? She's amazing. It's so inspiring to see her just keep challenging herself creatively.
And on top of all that, she's super active on social media.
Oh, yeah, she's got a big following online.
You can tell she really loves connecting with her fans,
Yeah, and sharing her music
It's like it keeps her grounded, reminds her why she started doing this in the first place.
to share her passion.
Exactly.
It's amazing to think about, where she started. Those early days in LA with the Bangles to now.
It really is quite a journey.
She's still creating, still pushing boundaries.
And doing it on her own terms.
So I think it's time to talk about legacy. Like, what is it about Susanna Hoffs that makes her still so relevant today?
It's a good question.
Decades after Walk Like an Egyptian.
That's a long time.
It really is. I mean, think about how much the music industry's changed just since the 80s.
Oh my gosh. Completely different landscape now.
Like, we were talking about MTV earlier.
Oh yeah.
Could you imagine a band, I don't know, having that kind of visual impact today?
It's hard to say. I mean, back then, MTV was like everything.
It really was.
It wasn't just about the music.
No.
It was like a whole cultural phenomenon.
It influenced, like, how we dressed, how we talked.
Oh, yeah, totally. And the Bangles, they were like masters of that visual language.
I mean, their videos were so iconic.
Iconic.
And her look, Susanna's look.
Instantly recognizable.
Yeah, yeah,
But it wasn't just about, looking cool.
right.
There was a real sense of like personality.
Yeah, and fun.
And a bit of like a little bit of rebellion too,
I can see that.
Like they weren't afraid to be themselves.
And I think that really connected with people,
Oh, yeah.
especially young women who, maybe were looking for something different.
For sure, like role models who weren't just, typical pop stars.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to remember too, this was a time when like the music scene was very male dominated.
Oh, yeah.
The Go-Go's, they kind of broke through a little bit.
Paved the way.
Yeah, but for an all-female band to have the success that the Bangles had, that was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And Susanna was right at the forefront of that, leading the way.
With that voice.
Oh, incredible voice.
And her charisma.
So much charisma.
Yeah, and I don't know, she just had this, like, unapologetically feminine energy.
Totally. And she never like shied away from that.
Yeah, she owned it.
And I think that really resonated with people, like especially women.
For sure.
It was like, she was proving that women could rock just as hard as the guys.
Yeah, and write amazing
And
songs.
own the stage,
Totally. And she did it all while still, like, being true to herself.
Yeah, she never compromised who she was.
Right, and I think that authenticity, that's a big part of why she's stayed so relatable.
Absolutely. People connect with that realness.
She's never tried to be anyone. She's not.
And she's not afraid to take risks.
It's true. Whether it's music, acting, even writing a book, it always feels like genuine.
Yeah, like it's coming from a real place.
Exactly.
It's pretty inspiring,
It is. It's like, no matter how old you are, you can still evolve, still explore new things.
Keep pushing yourself creatively.
Exactly. Like, creativity doesn't have an expiration date.
It really doesn't. Susanna Hoffs is proof of that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Susanna Hoffs, what's, like, the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I guess I'd want them to see that a creative career, it's not always a straight line,
It's messy, it's unpredictable.
Exactly. There are going to be twists and turns and detours and, moments of doubt.
And also amazing triumphs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But the important thing is to, like, stay curious.
Yeah, keep that spark alive.
Stay open to new possibilities and just never stop creating.
Well said. That's Susanna Hoffs in a nutshell. Right.
She's the real deal.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up for our Susanna Hoffs deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And we'll catch you next time for another
adventure.
Another adventure.